in person. So, all right. And I apologize. Next up, I'd like to introduce our board of directors. We have Madeline DeMaitonon, myself, Mike Rowley, joined with Tasha Woods, Cindy Coe, our superintendent, Troy Turno, director of finance, Kim Schneider, and Jen Coons, director of learning, student learning, teaching and learning. All right, next up, we would like to have the swearing in of Troy. And Troy, I guess we'll go up to the podium. Testing. All right. All right, Troy, if you could repeat after me, please. I, Troy Turno.
I, Troy Turno.
Do affirm that I am a citizen of the United States of America.
Do affirm that I am a citizen of the United States of America.
And of the state of Washington.
And of the state of Washington.
That I will support the Constitution and laws.
That I will support the Constitution and laws.
Of the United States and the Constitution.
Of the United States and the Constitution.
And laws of the state of Washington.
And laws of the state of Washington.
And will, to the best of my judgment.
And will, to the best of my judgment.
Skill and ability.
Skill and ability.
Truly, faithfully, and diligently.
Truthfully, faithfully, and diligently.
And impartially perform the duties.
And impartially perform the duties.
Of Ellensburg School District Superintendent.
Of Ellensburg School District Superintendent.
In and for Kittitas County.
In and for Kittitas County.
Washington, as such duties are prescribed by law.
Washington, as such duties are as prescribed by law.
Congratulations.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Thanks.
All right, board. That takes us to our consent agenda. I believe we all had a chance to look it over. Was there any discussion? Okay. That is an action item, so I would entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Tasha has moved that we accept consent agenda and Cindy has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, consent agenda has passed. That takes us into administration and the superintendent's update.
Thank you. And thank you for hiring me and giving me this opportunity. So I'm excited. For this meeting, being, a relatively simple business meeting and not having school going on and only being on the job officially since July 1st, I don't have any great programs or anything to recognize. So I thought that what I would do is just kind of give you an update on what I've been doing and what we've been doing as a team in preparation for the year. And as a result of, some of the personnel changes that happened right at the end of the school year. So basically, since July 1st, I've been meeting with as many people as possible, both inside the district, outside the district, have some meetings scheduled tomorrow, just getting to wrap my head around things, getting to know people, getting to understand what's going on. That has led to some planning and a constant learning every day of how everything is new and just making sure that I'm trying to get myself to be able to ask the right questions to get the answers that we need need and to make some strong plans moving forward. Right now, our focus for planning is for our retreat for administrators, our leadership retreat, which will be August 8th and 9th. So we've started that planning process, and we're moving forward with that and quite excited about it. We will have our administrative team together and get a chance to really understand what we want to focus on this year, develop our priorities, and lay out our planning for that. Probably the biggest thing that's gone on that was necessitated by Kelly Kronbauer's resignation as Executive Director of Operations and Student Support. So we needed to do some reshuffling within the district team. We talked about it quite a bit, and we're very excited kind of with the plan that we came up with. So Jen Kuntz is now serving as Executive Director of Teaching and Learning. And all we've really done is reshuffle the responsibilities within that division, so to speak, of it. And one of the things that I think personally is very important, and this was an opportunity for us to do it, was that teaching and learning really in a school district, that is the fundamental or core purpose of a school district. So we should have that heading up one of our departments. And so with Jen doing that, then we took some of the federal state programs, compliance roles that Kelly had been doing, and we wrapped that into a Director of Student Support, which we interviewed for this morning. And so all of the same, with one really rather large exception, stays within that same framework of how we were organized. We just sort of reshuffled the title, put teaching and learning at the top. Our new Director of Special Education and Special Services, Lori Gilling, has started. She started July 10th, brings a vast amount of experience in NetChiefs. And so we're in really good shape because Lori basically did all of the things that she's supposed to do with special ed, plus all the state and federal programs in NetChiefs. So we have some built-in support as we bring in our new person and create this integrated teaching and learning team, which is what we're really trying to do. And it was a nice opportunity for us to do that. Not that it wasn't integrated before, but really to kind of put it into a more traditional role within schools. The one exception is that the maintenance department, Randy's department, will move into business under Kim. But other than that, pretty much all of the work that was done between Kelly and Jen and Kelly Riddle is still being done. It's just reorganized a little bit differently. So that's been an interesting process. And I think we are learning to work with each other as a team and enjoying it so far. And so that's been a big part of what we've been doing. One other thing I want to make aware of, the Ellensburg Education Foundation has reached out. Mike McCloskey, I believe I will be meeting with him quite soon, has asked me to ask you and let you know that they would like to have 5 to 10 minutes 3 times during the year just to come and give a presentation at a board meeting of what they're doing and what they've been working on. And they would really like October, January, and March, if that's okay with you. We'd put them on the agenda and get that update and learn. The other thing that they're proposing, and it's a great idea, is bringing back the beginning of the year staff kind of get together barbecue that traditionally has been done, apparently been a combination of the administrative team and the board and things like that. So they're kind of wants some support, and we'll talk to the admin team about it as well, some support for doing like a back to school for staff barbecue, kind of like tailgate at the first football game or something like that. So sounds to me, obviously I wasn't here for when we were doing that before, but sounds to me like a great idea. And so we'll be kind of throwing our support behind that and getting that going. And I'll give you more updates with that. But I'd like to thank them for that forward thinking and bringing that together. And then just invite you to give me as much feedback. I know you'll be talking about it as possible, but we've got 2 meetings in August. What types of things we would want for study sessions, and you know, what types of things you'd like us to be thinking about. We can come up with stuff on our own, certainly, but these are your meetings and want to make sure that we are getting you the information and having the types of discussions that you would like to have and go in depth. I've talked when I met with Cindy in our just introductory meeting, we talked about maybe trying to make sure we have enough time in study sessions that we don't try too many topics to give you time to process, get the information to you ahead of time and be able to have that discussion. So that's something that's definitely on my radar. And as we get cranked up towards August and the beginning of school, we'll be very much, ready to help create those agendas and schedule all that stuff moving that forward so we can make sure we get the information out there that we need. So. Sure.
I just wanted to ask if there are mechanisms in place, because especially with the reorganization, Jen's role seems to have maybe not expanded, but the reshuffling of it, you have new obligations. And I was just wondering if there was a mechanism in place to check in as you're moving into the, school year, if that feels comfortable, if you're feeling overloaded, because it seems like stuff has been added to your plate.
And I would say, as we meet as an executive team regularly in our regular meetings, and we talk every day, that will be an ongoing piece. We're going to have some new well, it's a big adjustment. I mean, Kelly was responsible for an awful lot of things, and he's left us in a tremendous place. He's worked very, very hard and left us in a really good spot. But we're going to have to check in with Lori being new, me being new, Jen having a different role. Kim's the one that's, has the historical knowledge. But we're gonna keep working on that, and we're going to have to talk about that, because we do need to make sure that we are not missing anything, but we also need to make sure that we take that time to really check in. Is this working? Is this not working? If it's not, why? What do we need to do to impact that? So yeah, that'll be a part of our regular, we right now are focused on planning, but as we develop our routine, that's a big part of our meetings, having those discussions. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Troy.
Thank you.
Board, any other questions for us? All right. Thank you. All right, board, that takes us into our next item, which is business. I believe, Randy, you are up first. Draft 40-year capital plan. And I did turn the microphone back off. The microphone's back off. Yep. Here we go.
Now, can you hear me okay? Okay. Thank you for listening to me tonight. I know you guys always look forward to listening to me. No, I hope you've had a good summer. This 40-year plan is actually what I'm asking the action for, is a 6-year plan for the county improvement planning that we're required to submit every year. It's taken from our 40-year plan. As you guys remember, our 40-year plan, we put that together this last school year with our planning committee. We did several surveys, with staff and community and everything. And we've taken all of their ideas and concerns, and we put them down on paper. Me and Kelly and a few other people, we all, sat down and we tried to put some costs to that. We put priorities. Our priorities were always based on first, safety and health. That's the first thing that we always put on. Mandates, of course, you guys are all familiar with the House Bill 1257 at this point. And then condition and age. We've got an aging building. We've got a high school that's becoming aged. So we had to take all of those things into consideration, and, where we can best use our money that we have available coming up in the next few years, and make sure that we get more bang for our buck and put it to where it would do the most good. Some of the things that we've highlighted on here, and if you can look at the 40-year plan. So what we're looking at on our 6-year plan is basically the first priority, starting with priority number 1, which is, of course, is going to be parking lots, which we know that we have some that are degrading, and if we don't get on top of those as soon as possible, we could end up replacing them instead of just repairing them. A few other things, of course, with the House Bill 1257, that's a challenge we still have to tackle and figure out what we're going to do there. That might change over the next couple of years. The group that I'm with, WMO, we're still fighting that on Capitol Hill. We've actually put together a group that we were asked by legislators, just to give you a little quick update, to put together a group to help them understand what we're going to be facing. So hopefully we can get some good coming out of that when we start meeting with this in this group. Some of the other things that we're also looking at is, we've got some other aging equipment. We've got chillers. We've got things like that. The county improvement plan is, we do it every year. This is the only county that I know of that does one. This is the first time I've had to do it. I guess they're just, wanting to know if there's going to be any impacts to their planning, as far as, are we putting in new buildings and things like that. But I'm sure that all of you have the 40-year plan, and I think that Angie submitted the 6-year plan too. I don't know if you've got that broke down or not. I didn't see it here, right here.
Actually, Randy, do you have paper copies of that? Because we can't access it online right now.
I have one. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that you couldn't do that. So with the 6-year plan, I'll just give you a quick rundown on what's on the 6-year plan. So we've got the roof restoration that's going on at Lincoln. They started that yesterday. Let's see, we've also got electronic door locks at Lincoln Elementary. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the front doors. Those have all failed. So we have bids, we now have bids from Ednetics to get those, the door operators and the electronic part, the key readers and everything to be replaced for Lincoln and for Morgan Middle School. They're going into where the impact is. Electronic doors. Let's see. We were going to have the bus lifts rebuilt or replaced. That's been tabled for a year at this point after talking to Carol. And then we're going to start next year, we're going to start looking at upgrading our HVAC equipment to meet our House Bill 1257. Again, this is further discussions. So we've just got that on the priority list right now as number 2. It could be moved back. This could be changed in a day. I mean, if something happens, if something else could come up, but retro commissioning for these buildings to make sure, because we were over a couple of points. Retro commissioning just means we go back through the systems and make sure that we're running efficiently with all of our HVAC and lighting and everything that we can to try to keep our energy costs down. And let's see, we're looking at trying to replace the playground equipment at Valley View. This has been called out with the Department of Health on us a couple of times. We've got it semi-repaired now that it'll pass another year. We're working with a couple of playground companies to see what we can do as far as costs. And we're trying to get some grants. Of course, Kelly was starting to help me with that. So Kim, you get to pitch in on that one for what little bit of help I need. But both of those playground companies, they work with you to try to help find those grants and try to find funding and everything. So that's going to be real important because that playground equipment's almost 30 years old, and it's wearing out. Let's see. Oh, some bus lane improvements that we're going to be doing this year, which is a minimal cost. There at the high school, they've been having issues with getting the buses into the high school parking lot. So Randy Leniger and Carol and Bo all met while I was on vacation. Randy stepped in for me and they've devised a plan, and it's just going to be some simple painting, some signs, and cutting those basketball hoops off and making those signposts so that the buses can get over closer to that sidewalk. So that's going to be a minimal cost, which I was happy to see that. So in that 6-year, let's see, go down through here. Oh, so next year we're going to be looking at replacing the sprinkler system on the football field. It's a manual system right now that you have to physically have to plug the sprinklers in to make them work. So that requires people coming up on weekends to make sure that to get them on. The the problems that we've been having this year is just reminded us that, it's old, it's had it. We've got to replace a bunch of valves and some of the wiring, but that's going to be a big one. The actual pump and filter system over there has got to be replaced. We had the pump rebuilt, but the vanes are so wore out, we're barely keeping up the pressure. So that was on for next year to have that all replaced. So we'll start going out to bid this winter for it so it can be ready to go before we have to start irrigating again. So of course, in the 6-year plan, seal coating and possibly chip seal. I understand the chip seal works really well. Learning a little more about it. A lot of the city and county crews, they have to go through the chip seal process before they can actually get a road replaced. I've been talking to a couple of the crews there with the city, and they were telling me a little bit about it. So it might be something that we look at for some of our parking lots. It's a little messy, but it may extend the life of our parking lots so we don't have to replace them. But those are, what I was missing something here. I know I am. I think that's pretty much it. We replaced the boiler system this year, so that was on last year's plan. But that's the breakdown of what we're going to do. And all I'm asking is an approval from you to submit this as our 40-year plan, and we'll take the 6-year plan from that and submit it to the county.
Randy, I have a quick question, and I think Madeline does as well. So I'm looking at the spreadsheet, and you have some numbers next to these items that are supposed to be taken care of, 2, 3, 4, 8. And then next to the dollar signs, you have like numbers in parentheses, 3, 10. And I'm just curious what those numbers represent. Is that what year you're hoping to work on that project? Or so like item?
I'm trying to refresh my memory on what we did there. Let me see if I have
So like Morgan Middle School, electronic door locks is number 1, retro commission is number 2.
So those numbers, like 10, since the need for the new tennis courts was not met. 3, capital project requires a transfer of funds. 4 was a safety grant. These are just means of funding. What those numbers are. It was part of that spreadsheet. I think if you scroll down a ways, I think it's underneath there.
Yep. Okay. Now
sorry, I had to refresh my memory on that one too.
All right. Thank you.
Randy, since you have the spreadsheet, can you kind of just go over the sources of funding for the upcoming projects? Is most of the funding coming from the 600,000 that was transferred over from the general fund, or is this kind of a variety of sources?
Well, and that's where some of the discussion has to go further. Some of this stuff will be taken out of capital projects. Some of it we can do out of the general maintenance fund. But some of it we'll have to look at some extra funding down the road without going into it too deep yet.
Randy, thank you. And I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me, but I reviewed it at home when I had connection. Thank you for bringing up House Bill and planning that out for us about how we come into compliance with that. And then this plan was informed by committee work that various stakeholders sat on last year. Thank you for incorporating that feedback. And also for putting on things that, even though we had to do a reduction last year in order to keep our reductions as far away from the classroom as possible, I believe that this board has made it clear that we still support and care deeply about upkeeping the facilities and not just letting them fall behind. So I believe that this plan that you're presenting does put a focus on that.
Right. And this plan is just it's major projects. We've got a lot of smaller things that are going on too, but didn't need to put it in here, but most of that's covered through our general fund. I give Kim a nightmare. I told her that she's going to have to get some good sleeping pills or something because she hasn't had to deal much with me yet. No, and I look forward to working with Kim. She's been great. She's always been very knowledgeable and keeping me in my budget and letting me know what I can and what I can't spend. So she keeps me in line. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate your support on all of these things. Our team, we have a wonderful grounds crew right now. We're going to try to build our maintenance crew over the next couple of years and try to get it so that we can be more reactive, or excuse me, not so much reactive as we can be proactive, so that we can get ahead of some of these things. And, you know, it's just like the sprinkler systems, just all it needed was time. But if everybody can bear with us, I know we've had some comments about different things, and I think now people are starting to see some changes actually in the last couple of weeks. So we're really excited about the program that we've put together. We've got guys that have specific jobs now in our grounds crew. So we have landscape artists, we have sprinkler technicians, we have lawnmowers. So I think we've built a good crew there. So now we need to focus a little bit on our maintenance side of it so that we can get ahead of all this stuff. But I appreciate your support. And I do know that we got a challenge ahead of us, but, you know, we'll look and see, you know, best way to get the most bang for our buck and get this school and keep this school looking nice and make our community proud of the schools that they have.
And then Randy, by doing the 6-year plan, does that get us closer to being more of a preventative maintenance, being more on top of?
That's where we're trying to get to. That's, you know, these are the things that all of these steps we're going to have to take to get to a point where, you know, we can just do preventive maintenance. We're not having to react to things that have happened already. I mean, you know, with our chillers, we've got air conditioning systems that, you know, are constantly failing because they're 30 years old, you know, so we're trying to just keep those up so we can get the funding. But, you know, once that happens, you know, we have somebody on it. And of course, with the House Bill 1257, we have to maintain those EUIs every year and we have to report on those. So it's going to be real important to make sure we have the right people in place so that we can maintain those things and it doesn't cost us an arm and a leg every year to bring in contractors to correct the mistakes that weren't taken care of. So that's, you know, and we have to do that indefinitely. So, you know, that part of the maintenance is going to be changing forever. So the roles in our maintenance departments across the state are taking this into consideration and planning accordingly.
Board, any other questions? Thank you, Randy. Definitely very knowledgeable, and we appreciate all the hard work you're doing to keep our schools in the best shape that they can be for the students and teachers. So thank you.
Thank you.
Board, this is an action item, so I would entertain a motion. Or is there any discussion amongst ourselves?
I move that we accept the 40-year capital plan.
I second.
Tasha Woods has moved that we adopt the 40-year capital plan, and Madeline DeMaitonon has seconded. I'll call a vote. All those in favor?
Okay.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Here we go. Thank you. All right, next up is the financial update. Kim.
Good evening. So for the general fund this time, I'm presenting the financial update for July 2023, or for June, not July, we're in July, for the June 2023 financial update. The general fund is right on target again with revenues at 78.96% and expenditures at 77.64% as of June 30th. The unassigned fund balance equates to approximately 8.2%. And that's down from, I don't have it on the sheet, but I think it's down from 12.2%. So it's come down quite a bit in a month. And the reason for that is that this is a normal time of the year that it does go down quite a bit in June. We have a lot of expenditures in June. A lot of the expenditures are Staff likes to hang on to their supplemental contracts until June. So we have a lot more expenditures in payroll with that. And then we also have payment of Running Start to CWU. That's a pretty big payment that comes out. And just buying supplies for next year. You know, a lot of the buildings start buying the supplies in the spring and June so that they're ready for the year when it starts. So it's a normal, you know, it's $1 million from the month previously. So, but it is normal for it to be a big jump in June. There was no discrepancies were found. No discrepancies were found between Kittitas County Treasurer's Report and the Ellensburg School District trial balance for the general fund. The capital project fund is sitting at 34.29% for revenues, and expenditures are at 26.9%, with 23.53% of other financing sources. And that's from the general fund that we had transferred to the 600,000 already. We still have the other part to transfer. So the fund balance equates to approximately 2.73 million, which consists of state match fund, tax levy funds, and other district funds. And there were no discrepancies between Kittitas County Treasurers and the trial balance. Debt service fund is sitting at 98.71% for revenues, and expenditures at 98.37%. We have made all our payments for our principals and interest for the year. And there were the fund balance equates to approximately 3.18 million at this time. No discrepancies were found between the Kittitas County Treasurers and the trial balance. ASB funds is sitting at 61.47% for revenues, and expenditures are at 56.2%. The fund balance equates to approximately 471,000, which is restricted for ASB only. And no discrepancies were found between Kittitas County Treasurers and the district trial balance. The fund balance for the private purpose trust fund equates about 30,000, and no discrepancies were found between Kittitas County Treasurers and the district trial balance. And the transportation vehicle fund is sitting at 5.94% for revenues, and expenditures are at 17.64. We will receive our what we call our depreciation apportionment in August, and it looks like it'll be around $428,000. And I think that we just received another bus. Like I had said before, there's a lot of delay in what we had ordered buses last fall, and they're just starting to come in. We did receive one. I think we just received another one. I'll have to look at that again, but we're getting there with the ones that we have ordered. And there were no discrepancies between Kittitas County Treasurer's Report and the district trial balance for that fund. Again, I would just like to remind everyone that this report is presented with the information I currently have and is subject to change as we continue through the year. I would also like to remind everyone that revenue sources are used in the current funds for authorized expenditures and can't usually be transferred to be used in different funds unless authorized within the adopted budget and within the accounting laws. That's what I have. Are there any questions?
Seems that we don't have access to the internet.
No. Yeah, what would you like to know?
No, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So Kim, you had sent as part of the financial report, the kind of shift in the fund balance over the last 5 years.
Uh-huh.
I don't have specific numbers, but it seemed like last year we were significantly down. I'm thinking of the graph that had like,
I'm trying to find it right now.
Yeah, that one.
This one. Did you want
Yeah.
to?
I guess my just general question is, what do you have a sense of how we could address that? I know this is a concern. We talked about it at the retreat in April.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering what steps moving forward would you propose to address that?
With the fund balance going down. And, I think that we're all looking at ways to making sure that we're efficient, and so we're really looking at what we spend in supplies. How are utilities being spent? Where is, what's the copiers look like? Even just the little detail things that people might not think about. We're trying to look at those and say, do we have software out there that we're still paying for that maybe only 2 or 3 people use, and, taking an inventory of that and just really digging deep into what we're spending money on, where that's being spent. Otherwise, I think that we have to look at all our programs, and even with staffing, that's coming up. And I think we have to look at what our programs are doing, where we're putting our priorities and what is a priority. I think with the board and with Troy and, looking at all of that. So I think we just have to continue to look at that stuff and continue to dig deep and continue to be as efficient as we possibly can. We have great staff that's looking at all of that. Randy has looked at many things, even in his department, and has saved us money in several utility type situations. So I think we all need to do that. I think we all need to look at where we're spending money, what we're doing, because it's coming up a lot, and I think that, districts across the state are feeling the crunch. They're starting to really feel that crunch as the money's going away after next year. So they don't have that funding anymore. A lot of districts are looking at their 4-year projected budget and seeing some things that are going to be hard and that they're having to look to. And I think we're going to have to do the same thing and really start looking. We've had great staff and we've been looking, but I think we need to continue with that.
And board, as you remember, there is board policy that holds that fund balance to 5%. We've had a recommendation to put that fund balance at an 8% to change that policy. And as we're watching across the state, you saw Seattle and Olympia just adopted their budgets and they're spending down their fund balance, but they're maintaining it at 8%. And as they adopted their budget, they also put in there how over 6 years, Seattle was over 6 years, how they were going to maintain 8%. So even though they're facing things, they're at 8%. We have a policy at 5%, and we're still looking at efficiency. So statewide, I think it's fair to say that our fund balance is slim, and we're asking our staff with our policy to keep it slim. So that's something that the board has to say, do we still maintain the 5% fund balance? Do we go with the recommendation of 8%? But that would be even more efficiencies and reductions.
I agree with you. I think a 5% fund balance is way too low. As you look at even with the maintenance and stuff that we've had to do and the parts that we had to buy for boilers and things that have happened this past year, we had a part $90,000, right? So there's things that we're having to maintain, but when you get to a 5%, that's not even months worth of expenditures. And something happens or enrollment drops or anything like that, and you can't pay that, we need to be able to pay. So a lot of districts that I talk to, they do keep it between 8 and 10%. And I think that's my recommendation, but that we need to raise it to at least 8. I'm sorry, Mike. I just want to let you know that I'm working on the budget to have the adoption in August. Maybe either August 9th is what I'm shooting for. Kind of turns on our system at this point, but being able to do that on the August 9th board meeting. So a public hearing and having that, but Troy and I need to still talk about that. So if it's not the 9th, it'll be on the 23rd or around that time, unless we have a special meeting for a public hearing.
Troy, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I would just add, in my previous position and working with at an educational service district and working with 23 different districts, and having had one multiple times in the 7 years I was there, literally not be able to pay their bills due to different various reasons. It is important, very important for you to consider that fund balance minimum, and that 5% is fairly low relative, across the state. And so we do need to be able to have, just like we do in our personal accounts, we need to be able to pay our bills each month. And so that is definitely something to consider. And just knowing what working with a couple of districts that had a few hiccups and had to really find ways to make it happen and get some support. And it works out, but it's highly stressful and pretty much stops during that time period. It pretty much stops the business of the district and focus on what we're supposed to be focused on. So I think that would be a good discussion to have.
And one question, can you just kind of give us a refresher when we're talking about a board policy that raises that percentage? What happens when you have those large swings month to month? So you have like a big payment to CWU. What does that mean? I mean, if we're saying, yep, it's 8% now. Can you just talk how that will work?
Right. And I want to say like back in November, the fund balance did go to like right at 5. It was or a little bit below. And then we're not following the policy, right? So if we look at 5%, it's going to drop and expenditures and revenues do ebb and flow. They do this. And OSPI, they have a percentage flow like in June, the revenues are smaller than other months. And November is one of those also months that is smaller. Their percentages is that they don't send it out. July, it'll come out bigger. And they do a reconciliation like in January, they do a reconciliation for enrollment, what our actual enrollment was compared to what we budgeted. And so January's revenues go way up because of that, or unless you lost enrollment, they're going to go way down. So depending on where you end up, they do that in July too of certain programs and certain things that go on. So you see, you usually see an increase in revenue in July, but you're right. If we're right at, that really worried me in November when we were right at 5%. And so it does do that. And so I think that we do need to have it higher for that reason also.
Could I just clarify? So if it had gone to like 4.9, what happens? Is it like averaged across months or?
Yeah, it's going to be average across months and you're going to see, yeah, exactly. It's just average across months. Does anything happen? No, nobody comes and arrests us or anything, luckily, but you are not following your policy at that point. And that's where we have to be careful.
And it's a bit of a warning sign.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Board, any other questions? Thank you very much, Kim. That takes us into no policies tonight. Legislative report.
Yes, board, I do have a legislative report. The State Board of Education met in June in Renton, and there were a couple of things that came from there, some talking points that I think would be of interest to our district, and also some possibilities of attendance and voice in the future. So they spoke a lot and highlighted a lot of schools that had finished their profile of a graduate and how they were sort of working in student-centered learning environments. And they put out a call if any district or program had an example of I'm not remembering my word right now, an example of a project that accumulates into a ending presentation. Sorry, I've got all of my words are on. Then they would like to hear from us and possibly showcase that. The legislature did put forward the mandate that the State Board of Education create rules around a new performance-based graduation pathway. And so they are starting that work July 20th, tomorrow, with a webinar that people can attend and learn more about how that work will go forward and when they have to report to the legislature this new performance-based graduation pathway. They're continuing to focus on their mastery-based learning. And so there are 2 upcoming webinars, August 10th and September 13th, to learn about grant opportunities. All of the money has already been awarded to districts who are exploring or growing their mastery-based learning. Some of them are around us. Yakima and Quincy received money for that this year. So that's the report for the State Board of Education. Did anyone have any questions or? Okay, then I also attended the local town hall forum where Senator Warnick, Representative Dent, and Representative Ibarra were present, and Madeline was also there. So Madeline, jump in if anything, if you can think of anything too. I did end up asking them two questions during that public forum. The first one was in regards to special ed funding, and that if there was any political will or knowledge that they would continue to fund to try to limit that gap of funding that we experience. Representative Ibarra welcomes a conversation with district to speak about our specific situation, because he is fairly certain that we do not have a deficit from that. So he welcomes that conversation, and he would like to meet with people on that. And then specifically to Representative Dent, because he spoke about his love of early learning in children, I asked if there would be the solid funding for our early ed program, our TK program, if we could expect that. And I didn't really receive an answer on that. I think it's fair to say, except that Representative Barr said that he heard the same thing from the Quincy superintendent, that it's TK is important and is impactful on young learners' lives. So there was agreement that the program should exist, but not quite agreement on the funding of the programs. And that's my report.
I have a question. Sorry. Could you you use two phrases, performance-based education and mastery-based education? Could you distinguish between those?
Yes, so the performance-based graduation pathway. So it is one of the pathways that was presented to the legislature this year with them to consider, should we add on another way to graduate? And so the legislature said, yes, a performance-based graduation pathway, but the State Board of Education has to write the rules around it. So they have to explore that and kind of see what local districts are saying. That is separate from the mastery-based learning grant opportunities, which Executive Director of Teaching and Learning and et cetera, can potentially speak to stronger, but mastery-based learning has been a focus on State Board of Education, both by their speaking about it, their showcasing districts about it, and also funding districts with money about it. So if you want to learn more about mastery-based learning, there are 2 webinars coming up.
Yes, I heard about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, and I did invite all of our representatives, Ida, Nason, and Veronica, after the rodeo parade. They politely declined because they are busy that day. And they invited us to reach out to the legislative reps. So then I told Representative Ibarra, then maybe we'll have to make it at 7:30 on a certain day versus after the rodeo parade. It is up to him.
Thank you very much, Tasha. Any other discussion, board? All right. Thank you. I do not have a board chair report tonight, but I have a feeling I will have one the next time we get around. That takes us into public comment. If you give me a second, find the right. So I let people on that know okay. You sent them a message. Yeah. Okay. And we don't have anybody in person right now. Oh, yeah, sorry, Randy. Okay, so Leslie, you've got us set up for public comment. You've addressed the people watching on Zoom. If they'd like to make public comment, please raise your hand, show your emoji that you're waving, or please let us know that you want to do public comment. I'll just say the board will the board will allow up to 15 minutes of total time allotted for public comment this evening, and each speaker will have up to 3 minutes of time. The board is not obligated to provide additional public comment time to accommodate everyone in attendance or on Zoom. The board is not obligated to respond to questions or challenges made during the public comment period, and the board silence will not signal agreement or endorsement of any speaker's remarks. Sorry, I'm reading this off my phone. In my capacity as board president, I may terminate an individual's remarks when the allotted time has passed. I may also interrupt or terminate any speaker who is making uncivil comments. Uncivil comments include but are not limited to obscene comments, comments that are defamatory toward another person, or commentary that is unwarranted invasion of privacy. The board reserves the right to have anyone removed who refuses to adhere to the rules and creates a material and substantial disruption of the meeting. Personnel matters are generally private and administrative in nature. Constructive criticism can be helpful. At the same time, the board has confidence in its staff and programs and will act to protect them from unwarranted criticism or disruptive interference. Complaints or concerns received by the board or any board member will be referred to the superintendent and will not be considered or discussed by the board in this setting. I'd ask that you respect staff members' privacy and consider putting any concerns you have in writing. If they pertain to a personnel matter, the board can then review and forward those to an appropriate administrator. Leslie, are we ready for public comment? Did anybody sign up on that? Should I still read the second part of this? So I'm going to forego that last 4 paragraphs. All right, we'll just leave it open for a second. All right, I'll close public comment. Takes us into new business, which there's nothing on the agenda, but we had a quick discussion. I don't know if this would fall under clarification and next steps or new business. Let's put it under clarification, next steps. Okay, so that takes us into meeting closing. Do we have an executive session tonight? Takes us to board calendar. Any questions about our board calendar? We do have a couple board meetings coming up in August. All right, that takes us on to clarification next steps. Tasha and I were talking. We do need to clarify what committees we had out there because we want to discuss whether or not we want to keep going with them or change them or and come up with a calendar of sorts for those meetings, correct? So I think we were discussing, we had the Capital Bonds Committee, which I was part of. We had the
Student-centered learning.
Student-centered learning committee, and then
The profile of a graduate.
profile of graduate.
And then is there consideration of following a process for a budget committee this year as we look at spring? So there were 4 committees in process, standing committees, the budget committee, the profile of a graduate that we were on, student-centered learning committee, which we were on, Madeline and I, and then capital. So I would like to see those committees still continue and to find calendar events for those, because I think that some of them were in process and some of them were really helpful. The budget committee was really helpful last year. And the capital committee helped inform the work we adopted today. So possibly next time, an idea from staff about that. And then for possibilities for a study session to consider, and I'm asking the board to weigh in on this. Last year, during the budget decisions, we did deliver high school summer school programming was different this year than last year, and when that went forward, I did at that time ask for a report on the sort of what happened in this year. The modality was different. What were some of those outcomes, and comparing it to the previous summer school experience. A second one, also during those budget decisions, was that we declined to renew our paid survey that we were going out to help sort of inform how our students felt and how our families felt about the school. And so we were looking for it at that time. I did vote for it, but said that we need to have a way that still goes out and gets student and family voice in a constructive fashion. That goes a little bit deeper than not that belonging at school is not deep, but it goes a little bit deeper than I feel like I belong at school. So something like that, especially from secondary. And then sort of, you always do a wonderful job of this. And if we have questions, Kim, you always answer them, but financials in the study session, when we're looking at adopting that, sort of having a chance in a study session to ask some of those questions and to kind of get into that, especially before that adoption. Those are the things that I was concerned about and hoping that they were going to continue moving forward, and reports that I would hope to hear from a study session, but always up for discussion from the board.
Yeah, I agree that the committees are very insightful with helping us as a board make decisions and the administration. So I think, especially with Randy's and the capital bonds or capital projects, we definitely want to keep that one and the student learning, centered learning for sure. So, okay. Board, anything else on that? Any other clarifications?
So is it typical to have like 2 board members on each of those committees? Or
I believe it's 1 to 2. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so 1 to 2
Okay.
board members. So then we're kind of involved with it and then can report back to the other board members that aren't
So
there.
do we need to have a discussion now about like who's serving on which of those committees, or?
I think we could wait till Jonathan is here and then we can see if anybody wants to do a different committee. Because I mean, I do like the capital projects and like knowing where our money's going. But yeah, I mean, if there's, we can wait till we have Jonathan back and we can ask if anybody wants to try a different committee or something like that. So. Yes, Randy.
Can I make one suggestion on that, the capital improvements? Can we downsize the committee just a little bit?
I believe so. I think, I don't remember how many we had, but there was quite a few. So, and we need to be committed to, we need to have people committed to actually discussing and showing up. So
Going forward, I mean, I think the committee that we had last year was a great opener for that. Now we need to have I think in my opinion, specific stakeholders that are invested with what this is going on.
all right, so Randy's suggesting that we have, do you mind repeating it again into the microphone, Randy? Yeah, please.
Randy, we're just going to note that you did have a public comment.
So. Do this correct, right? So my suggestion would be is to downsize the size of the committee. I think the opener that we had last year was great because we involved the community, we involved all the stakeholders across our district. But now I think we need to get people that are a little more involved with, what is actually going on so that we can actually focus on what needs to be done now with all of the ideas that came from the community last year. I think that would kind of help us focus a little more on what needs to be done.
Great, thank you, Randy. All right, any more clarification, next steps? Leslie, do we have documents to sign? Awesome, thank you. That will take us to adjournment. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we adjourn.
Cindy has moved that we adjourn and Tasha has seconded. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy some more summer after this. The meeting has ended.